Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, this is our second lecture, the start of the programming. First lecture for the programming. We select the Java programming language for this purpose. Java language has got many good features. On this slide, we try to explain why we pick Java. If we try to speak of its strengths and its advantages as compared to the other languages, we may need quite a few hours to discuss. We will not go into too many details. As I said in my previous lecture, a programmer of one language is the programmer of every language. To switch a language, all you need to do is to learn the new syntax. The basics, the fundamentals, the concept remains the same. So, although we pick Java language, but throughout this course, our focus will be on learning the programming concepts, the fundamentals. Java would be used as a tool for us to practice those fundamentals we learn for the programming language. Any tool can be picked, any language can be picked, but the programming concept should be learned. Okay, let's start. The question should not be what we can do in Java. The question should be, what is it that we cannot do in Java? Java provides a very rich set of APIs, packages, which already built and tested by the Java language provider and third parties, which can do the job for us readily. We don't need to do a lot of programming. So I hardly think of a technology for which the Java does not provide a package. If not by the vendor, by the language provider, it may be available by the third parties. For example, it provides a lot of good technologies for the development of for web on the cloud, for the desktop computers, for the mobiles, and for other devices. It is a general purpose programming language. We can do general purpose programs in this language. It is a platform independent. Compile once, run everywhere means that we compile the program on one computer and take the compiled form to another computer without recompiling or without changing the code in the other computer. We can run it. This may not be possible by all the languages or by most of the languages. That makes the language a platform dependent language. Java is platform independent. What makes the Java platform independent is shown in this diagram. It has a compiler that accepts a Java code and compile the Java code into an intermediary code called the bytecode. This bytecode is the machine code for a virtual machine known as JVM. If I have this JVM for my specific platform, if I have an Intel processor with Windows operating system, I can download the JVM for this platform. If I have this JVM on my machine, which is the virtual machine, this bytecode will run on my machine without recompilation of the original code or without changing in the original code. This may not be true for all the languages. If the platform changes, we may have to recompile at least, or we may have to change the code. For example, in C, C++, we have to do that. Whereas here, in this case, we don't. So these are two steps that makes the Java independent. So the compiler could be any if I'm using a compiler, my compiler will make the source code converted to the byte code. Now I can give the byte code to anyone. The person should have a virtual machine for their machine, for his machine, where the byte code can run. Once this will run, it will create a machine code for that particular machine platform. Even if you don't understand this at this stage, you don't need to worry too much, because the programming is something else. This is the environment. Always remember one thing: when a baby starts learning a language, the baby does not know too many things about the language, too many things about the listeners, the environment, and everything. They start speaking the language bit by bit. And then they gradually, when they learn the language, then they get to know the rules of the language, and they get to know the other issues associated with the language. Similar concept applies here. If you don't understand everything, you don't need to worry. You need to learn the language. This is not the language right now. We are talking about why Java and the platform and the strength. If we don't understand this at this stage, nothing to worry about. We can learn this slowly, gradually as we move on. Okay. I always use Java How to Program book. I've started this from edition 4 when I started back 20 years ago. Now this 11th edition is out. 10th edition I've seen in hard. 11th edition is in PDF. I've seen online. It's out. So I like this book. It looks like it is a very heavy book, but nothing to worry about. By the volume of the book, the content of the book are good. We can learn from the book. Okay, so there I would, if you want to go for a book, go for this book. There are maybe some simpler books as well in the market, but as I started this, I always feel convenient using this book. Anyhow, I'm at the stage that the book is not a problem for me. I can learn from any source. This will happen with all of you once you move on. The initial few steps are always harder, but once you start working, then you can speed up and you can run easily. So no need to worry. The IDE, the environment to compile a Java, is based on two things: the JDK, Java Development Kit, and the NetBeans, and then the IDE. The IDE I have in my machine is NetBeans. This looks like this. This is NetBeans. Here's a program. Here we can compile and run. Okay. The other environment, which is on the cloud online, is this. On tutorials point, I write a program here, then I execute, it runs here on this side. So these are the two environments I would be using during this course. Okay, so these are the three sources: the book, the IDE. To make an environment on your desktop, first you need to download JDK, Java Development Kit, from the Oracle site, and then you have to download the NetBeans. Do the JDK first, then the NetBeans, then this will be automatically connected. Otherwise, you can use the online compiler. Tutorial points, there may be others as well. Okay, let's move on to the first Java program. Despite the fact what you understood and what you don't understand, what has been passed, doesn't really matter. From here, we start the programming. A program in Java would look like this. Java belongs to C-like languages. There are many languages, they have the syntax of C or like C. So that's why we call this C-like languages. C, C++, JavaScript, Java, and many other languages, they have the similar syntax. That's why they're called C-like languages. So switching within this group is very easy. few things plus minus, you can learn things easily. Okay, now let's take a look at this program. Whenever you take a look at something, there are many perspectives to look at a thing. In this program, there are many perspectives. You can learn the program from many different angles. Take one angle is it looks like line of code, 10 line of codes. Okay, it has statements. What are the statements? A statement is the one which ends with a semicolon. So 1, 2, 3. There are 3 line of codes with a semicolon. 1, 2, 3. There are 3 statements in this program. What are other line of codes then? Okay, let's take a look at this one by one. Before we actually go into this, let's take a look at a minimum piece of code, which is a valid code. It is like this. This statement written in red here, public class hello, start of the bracket, end of the bracket. This is the minimum valid program in Java. So what is this Java program? Java program is always a class. Remember this. A Java program is always a class. What is a class? It is a construct. What is a construct? In a construction, the building blocks, the things are used, the fundamental primitive things by which we build the building is called the construct. So in Java, class is a construct, is a building block. Every program in Java has to be a class. So it is a class. What is a class? A class has a name. This class has hello name. It is a beginning of the bracket and end of the bracket. So what I want to show you here, that a valid program is a class, although this class is nothing, not doing anything. In set theory, we have an empty set. We have a set of 2 items. We have a set of 3 items. But empty set is a valid entity in the conceptual things in the theory. So similarly, this program is not doing anything, but this program is a valid empty program. Okay, coming back to the program. Now in this program, the first line is a single line comment. If you want to make a comment, comments are necessary. Whenever you write a program, comments are going to help you or help others to understand the program. If I make a program, I give it to another programmer, and the programmer, if I have made good comments here about the program, the reader of my program would understand the program well. If I make a program some time ago, I give it up after some period, let's say 6 months time, I open up the program. For me to understand the program quickly, these comments will help me to understand. If I don't write the comments, every program looks the same. Piece of code, line of codes, statements. To understand, it will take time. But with the help of the comments, one can understand better. So writing comments is a good software engineering practice. There are many benefits to it. I will not go into details right at this stage. So single line comment means everything written up to the end of the line will be considered as comment, and then the next line. What if you need to write multiple line comments? If you need to write multiple line comments, you need to enclose this into these 2 delimiters. There is a mistake here, a typo. I will correct that typo here. In the program, we have a static and then backslash. Okay, now typo is removed. Now coming back here, multiple line. If you enclose multiple lines between this tag, the start of the command, / static symbol, and then the close tag here, this will make the multiple line comment. Okay. Now let's take a look at these are the 2 comments. The compiler, which we saw on the previous slide, ignores the comments. The compiler does not read the comments. What is a compiler? Compiler is a translator, because the machine understands different language. Human is writing in a different language. In the previous slide, we looked at the three languages: assembly language, the machine code, which is understandable by the machine, then the assembly language, then the high level languages. So these assembly language and high level languages, they are not the languages of the machine. Machine's language is the machine code 01. Because 01 is difficult, we have discussed this in the previous lecture. To make it developer friendly, user friendly, we make high level languages. High level languages are translated by the compiler. So the compiler is simply a translator. So my program is Java program, as shown in the previous slide. My program here will pass into the compiler. The compiler, which is the translator, will translate into the low level language bytecode, which is for the JVM. The JVM will translate it again down to the machine code for the actual platform. Okay, coming back here. Now there are three statements ending with semicolon. Every statement ends with a semicolon. So in the whole program, you can see 1, 2, 3 statements for the semicolon. Okay, what are the other line of codes then? Keep out the comments, 3 lines. It is not being read by the compiler, being ignored. Okay, so what about line 6, line 7, line 9, and line 10? We can say these are the structures. These are the structures for the construct. For the class construct, as we saw in this previous line, the class construct says it should start with public, class, name of the class, start of the bracket, end of the bracket. So this is the structure of the class. The class is not doing anything because it does not have any statement. Coming back to this program. So this line 6, line 7, line 9, line 10, these are the structures. 7 and 9, it belongs to the method structure. Class can have methods. A class can have methods. We'll discuss this later on. Let's not worry too much about everything at this stage. It's too early to worry about everything at this stage. So follow me and move with me, then you will understand everything when the time comes. Okay, line 6 and 10, they are the structure for the class. Now coming to the statements, there are two types of statements. One type of statements comes outside the class. There are two statements which can come out of the class. All other statements can go inside the class, go inside the method. These two statements, the package statement and the import statement, they do not go inside the class. And all other statements which can come inside the class or inside the method, they cannot come outside the class. So easy way to remember: package statement, import statement. These are the only two kinds of statement which come before the class. They cannot go inside the class. Other than this, any statement cannot be written outside the class. Right? So the statements can go inside the class, cannot come outside, and the statements that can be written outside the class cannot go inside. This is simple way to remember. And the two statements, I will not talk about the other statements because there are other many. So let's not go into the many because hard to remember many things. Easy to remember few things. We take the two statements here, the package and the import, they come outside the class. Okay, what this program is going to do, it is going to print a message, a programmer's approach, the name of this channel, on the screen, on the CLI screen. Now, let me show you the output of this program in an environment. Here is the environment, a programmer's approach. You can see this program. Only the package part is different. Now let's compile. We compile this code. Oh, sorry. Cancel. We have to compile the file. hello world. Here's a hello world. Right click and run type. Don't need to worry about this thing what I'm doing right now, because this is a bit too advanced. So that you will learn later. So run the file. You can see here the output. The output is written here. This comes from this program. So this program is doing the one thing, printing output on the screen. Okay. So coming back to the first program, line 1 single line command, line 2 to line 3 multiple line commands, then the two statements which can the only two statements which can come outside the class is package and import. By the way, this lines 5 import, this is by default part of every program. You don't have to write it. This is the only import which you don't have to write. Other than this, all the imports you have to write. Okay, what this import means, what it will do, that will be explained later, because it will make the current lecture too heavy for you right now. So in this program, like I said, when the baby starts learning, the baby remembers the sentences without arguing the structure of the sentence and the science behind making the sentence. So at this stage, if I ask you to remember this simple program without arguing and without knowing the science of this, making the program, this will be easier. Later, gradually, we will explain everything and you will understand everything, inshallah. Okay, coming back here. Now, come to the next slide. A class without a main method. As you can see here, this class is without a main method. This is a valid program, but this program is not doing anything. A class with a main method becomes an application. What is the difference between an application and not an application? Okay, for this I will explain with this on my machine. If I do Alt Control Delete on my machine, you can see the task manager. Go to the task manager. The task manager shows 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 applications running on my machines. Now these are the 7 applications we can count here. 2 here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got on my desktop, I've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 applications running. These 7 applications are applications. How about these? There's a long list of processes, 123. These are not applications. Only these 7 are applications. These are not applications. They are like processes, services running at the background. They're providing services to these and other features of the operating system. Okay, so you can see applications and processes. Okay, with this I will switch it off, coming back to the slide, and I explain. A class without a method is a process. It is not an application. It cannot run on its own. An application runs on its own, whereas the process does not run on its own. It runs for others. Processes are like services. They run for others. Yeah, okay. So a class with a main method is an application. An application can execute, can run. If I write this same program, this program here in the NetBeans or the other online tool, which is the tutorial point online compiler, it will not properly execute. It will be compiled, but it will not be executed, because for the execution, the main method is necessary. Compilation is different. Application execution is different. Again, no need to worry about these things at this stage. You will learn slowly, gradually. So at the moment, just remember this. If a class has a main method, then it is an application. If a class does not have a main method, then that is a process, an API. I avoid all these jargon terminologies to reduce the confusion. Okay, so what is a program? Collection of statements. How many statements did we see in the last program? 3 statements. What are the other lines of code? Other lines of codes are constructs or the comments. Comments are ignored. So if I say my program is actually based on line 4 to 10, then that is correct statement, because line 1 to 3 is totally ignored by the compiler. Compiler does not read this, does not translate this. Compiler only reads from 4 to 10 and translate it. Okay? So we can say the program is from line 4 to 10. And how many statement? 3 statement. 1, 2, and 3 statement, because every statement ends with a semicolon. 2 kind of statements to be written outside the class. We have talked about this. Only 2 statements: package and import. Other kind of statements to be written inside a method or inside the class, that we will see later. The name of the file must be the same as with the class with the main method. One condition in Java is I have to save this file, this program, with the word hello. Java is case sensitive. That means I need to save this program with word hello with smaller letter, with small h, not with capital H. With capital H, it will be different. So we need to save the program with the same name as with the name of the class to make it compiled and executable. I hope things are clearer. So to sum up, this is the first Java program. First, we talked about why we picked Java, different reasons. Then we talked about the sources of the Java, the book, the IDE on the desktop, and online compiler. Then we talked about the first program, and then we talked about few details of the program. We'll keep it up to here. Until next time, take care.